After overcoming the previous nightmarish chapters and making sure to collect all of the hidden items, we managed to unlock the final climactic chapter in Ju-on. The question is, with the entire family now dead, who's going to be our host as we head through the cursed house? That's right, it turns out that Erika managed to survive her trip through the warehouse, probably due in no small part to Ivy's elevator intervention. And while Erika still is on the lookout for her missing dog, it now seems she is also on the lookout for her 3 missing family members. And due mostly to dramatic irony, we already know that is going to be a pretty, let's say, futile exercise, but that's really not going to stop Erika from poking around this cursed house and, I suppose, trying to find them. Problem is, as you can imagine, there are going to be a number of obstacles as we try to make our way around. I mean, locked doors, bloody packages, but as with most of the other episodes, I guess the main issue we are going to really run into is just our flashlight timer. And that's even more so prevalent in this particular final episode because, well, this battery here, this is the only battery you are going to get in this entire chapter. And while this isn't a especially long chapter, in fact I'd say it's probably the shortest, more than likely if you are a fan of Ju-on and you went into this game hoping for, I don't want to say fan service, but at least more references directly to the film or maybe more backstory, this final chapter is pretty much all you're going to get. And it's especially sad that you just have the least amount of time to, kind of soak up the atmosphere and, visit all the creepy places you might have become familiar with throughout the franchise. I mean, I will say, it's great that they, faithfully recreated the cursed house that was present throughout the series, but yeah, being on such a strict timer definitely does, limit one's enjoyment of this particular setting. Still, we are getting a number of audio cues about places we can investigate. You probably heard the ringing phone downstairs, and obviously there's a creepy cat somewhere in this room. Though, as I'm sure with most cats, they aren't very forward with strangers, so we might do a little searching to make sure and find that cat. In fact, that cat somehow might be trapped inside this taped-up closet here. And that's pet endangerment. In reality, though, the reason that this particular closet is taped up, if I'm remembering somewhat correctly, I think that's where Toshio was locked up by his father and inevitably, I think, starved to death. Though that's the least of our concerns right now. Yeah, I'd say out of all these scares in the game, that is somehow both the best and worst one that they've kind of presented us with. It just doesn't really fit in with the Ju-on themes at all outside of cats. But it's just very goofy and over the top. And while we did manage to get a key for that locked downstairs door, figure it might be worthwhile to see all the rest of the nothing that is available up on this second floor. Yeah, well, I'd say the house is somewhat iconic with its, different scenes from the movie. I won't say it's a very exciting house. I'd say for the most part that I think a lot of the terror that is really, present is in just the innocuousness of the house itself. It's just a house. It's just a diary. But it's kind of the actions and repercussions that are attached to the place that make it really scary. Well, that and the box cutter wielding ghost. But, well, you might be wondering, hey, that might have been, I think, Hiro, Erika's father, since it did look like a security guard, but why was it wielding a box cutter? Well, it's more, backstory / lore that's more present in the films, and that sometimes people that end up interacting with the vengeful spirits or living in the house itself, they end up getting semi-possessed by the tormented ghost, and they will start to mimic and recreate the actions that inevitably led up to the bloody fates that they all suffered from. In this case, in the film, Kayuko's husband, Toshio's father, was shown after having, brutally murdered them to, get stuck in a cycle of just opening and closing a box cutter, which, yeah, I guess is supposed to say that maybe Hiro got possessed at some point. I suppose that could have been more interesting backstory they could have covered in the game, but, well, we never really got that. All we got was the tail end of Hiro's life, where it still seemed like he was a mostly caring and loving father. And I feel that's kind of one of the major shortcomings of the game, is that you could probably do something interesting with the storytelling devices and, narrative flow that the Ju-on films kind of repeat to death. The thing is, though, that this game just kind of reaches the very tail end and assumes you just want to see the spooky ghost and the carnage and the aftermath and people dying, and, well, that's not really, at least personally, what I found to be enjoyable about the films. What I found to be enjoyable about the films is kind of getting engrossed and attached to the family members and feeling bad when they inevitably have to meet their horrible, tormented fates. Instead, with this, we are kind of given the control over what feels like random people that we only kind of loosely figure out are connected, and yeah, they just end up dying after we know them for next to no amount of time. So there's not really any type of connection there. Couple that with the fact that, yet again, you really have to kind of be familiar with the Ju-on franchise to, I want to say appreciate what little this game has to offer. I mean, a part of me kind of recalls, I'm wanting to say, like the first Ju-on film, where that room that we just left, kind of an empty, pointless room outside of having a little scuffle with Kayako, I seem to recall that either like in the first or second actual like Ju-on film, not the made-for-TV films, there was a grandma and I think an oba-san, as the Japanese call that particular member of the family. She ended up meeting her fate in this room, where she was just living a somewhat comfortable elderly life, where I guess her family members thought she was just imagining this boy ghost and this, horrible female specter, and she just dies in sheer terror, and it's shown in that room. But we don't get that here. What we get instead is... well, we get the majesty of assuming that Ivy somehow used a phone and left an answering machine message. But we also get these, I guess, quick glimpses of Erika's family and like their final moments, like delivering a bloody package, or I mean, I would assume that her mom would have been in a hospital gown, but no, she just kind of looked normal. But yeah, it just loses a lot because there's no real connection, and yeah, I mean, it kind of, well, yeah, it seems really pointless in that, Erika is trying to find her family right now or get some clues. But we already know and have a lot of apathy in regards to, I guess, the outcome of the story. But yeah, our battery life is running excessively low, and I think this is pretty much the final room we can really explore. But at least in regards to the Ju-on backstory, this is a very important location. Because the attic of the house is inevitably where the husband stored Kayako's dead and cut-up body. And while it seems all hope might almost be lost, I do hear the distant barking of our good dog Ivy. I can only assume that answering machine message must have said, "Hey, I'm on my way home, just wait for me there and we'll get this all sorted out." And to make things even better, all that nasty hair is now off the front door, so we should be able to get out of here just barely as our battery is running dead. And with that final recreation of pretty much the most famous scene out of the Ju-on franchise of Kayako creepily climbing down the stairs, we reach the only acceptable ending to the game, which is everybody's dead. There is absolutely no escape whatsoever from the curse, and yeah, I mean, it's fine for the films, probably for novels, where you're, like I mentioned, you're kind of getting engrossed in the story and the characters in the story, but for a game, there's no real reward for it. There's no unlockables, there's no feeling of achievement that you managed to finish that final repetitive QTE, and your reward is you still die. You don't learn any more, you don't even get the feeling of satisfaction to know that maybe Ivy survived. Nope, everybody's just dead. And that is pretty much on par with the franchise. But the question is, inevitably, who was this game really made for? I mean, is it made for fans of the movies? I would highly doubt it. They probably would have been super bored. Was it trying to sell itself as a haunted house simulator, as the subtitle of the game, I think in the Power region, was trying to allude to? Maybe. I mean, it seemed to be a fairly loose assortment of different environments where jump scares occurred. So, yeah, I guess it could be haunted house-esque, but in the end, it's a mostly forgettable piece of shovelware that, yeah, I don't know. I don't want to say it's the worst J-horror game ever because, well, the Ring game still exists, but even that, I mean, I think there's a little bit more to it, and I think it goes a bit more of some interesting directions. This game, very boilerplate, very standard, but hopefully you enjoyed this little trip through this piece of Wii horror. Hopefully you will join me next time. I will continue playing through and showing off Tales from the Dark Soul. Hopefully you will join me for that. But with that, I will bid you adieu. And, yeah, hopefully you have a pleasant evening.